Morning. The last time I was in Texas was about 8 months ago. I was having breakfast with some small business owners, including Christina, the CFO of a family-owned Tex-Mex restaurant in Houston. Houston's an interesting place to study because in 2015, when oil prices dropped, people around the country had more cash in their pockets from spending less at the gas station. But in Houston, the epicenter of the oil and gas industry, people lost their jobs. So we were interested in Christina's take. We showed her this chart. This is the year-over-year growth in local consumer commerce in 15 cities, including Houston. It's built off of 18 billion debit and credit card transactions. What's going on with May 2016, Christina asked. Consumer spending dropped by 3.5%. Was that because of lower oil prices? Now, anytime you're dealing with big data, you never know whether you're picking up a signal or noise, or whether some glitch happened when those 18 billion transactions were neatly stacked into columns and rows and collapsed into a single number like negative 3.5%. We had spent a week digging into this and discovered an interesting story. Turns out, people spend roughly 30% more on Fridays and Saturdays than other days of the week. May 2015 had 10 Fridays and Saturdays. May 2016, because it was a leap year, had just 8 Fridays and Saturdays. So when you compare May 2015 to 2016, it looks like there was a big contraction in consumer spending. Christina's eyes lit up. We felt that, but we were afraid that all the oil and gas companies had decided to lay off all their people all at once. We feel it when oil prices are low because people have fewer business dinners, they drink less, they drive to the restaurant instead of taking an Uber, and then they drink even less because they drove to the restaurant. I'm so happy and relieved to know that this wasn't just a Houston effect. This happened in all 15 cities. Other heads around the breakfast table started to nod. And this was a real aha moment for me, too. For the last 2 years at the JPMorgan Chase Institute, we've been trying to understand the unique value of these data to the world. For one, they are real transactions. So they are not the survey responses, the gross annual salaries that people have in their heads. They're the actual paycheck amounts that arrive in people's accounts. These data are huge. That means we can drive down to the city level each and every month. That just doesn't exist elsewhere. And these data offer the raw cash flow perspective, not the seasonally adjusted, inflation-adjusted estimates that economists like. So when we released our technical note explaining our May 2016 number, this negative 3.5%, I'm pretty sure economists were shaking their heads saying, I think the JPMorgan Chase Institute just rediscovered the calendar. But there's more to it than that. We are missing something really important about the rawness in people's financial lives when we smooth our data. Christina's business doesn't live an inflation and seasonally adjusted life. It lives with the cash that flows in and out of its accounts each day and each month. Now, it turns out this volatility exists not just for businesses, but for families. From a universe of 35 million families, we sampled 250,000 and studied their income and spending. This chart shows the median month-to-month percent change in income and spending for families at different income levels. Now, for those of you squinting in the back of the room, this probably reminds you of an impressionistic painting of stability. It is anything but. Families experience 30% swings in income and spending in a typical month. That's like adding or subtracting a mortgage or a rent payment each month on both the expense side and the income side. So across the income spectrum, our lives, our financial lives, are universally volatile. Now, this income and spending volatility wouldn't be hard to deal with if it were always the case that income spiked exactly when expenses spike. But we don't see that. we don't see that these fluctuations move in tandem. So that means that families can experience the double jeopardy of having their incomes dip exactly when expenses spike. That's stressful. We quantified that stress by zooming into 50,000 families who had made a big medical payment, roughly $2,000. This chart shows what happens to their income, their spending, their liquid assets, their revolving credit card debt before and after that payment. There were two big insights. First, families waited to pay that bill until they had a higher ability to pay. That means they either waited to go to the doctor or waited to pay the medical bill until they had more money in their accounts or a spike in their income. Second, as soon as they made that payment, their revolving credit card debt shot up by 5% and stayed high. A year after the payment, their revolving credit card debt was still 9% higher than it had been before. So regardless of families' insurance status, their health insurance status, the financial impacts of a medical payment hit hard and lasted a long time. So it is stressful. Now, the data we're working with, they're fully anonymized and de-identified and stripped of all of those juicy personal information that helps us read between these lines and really know what's going on. And that's where the power of multiple perspectives comes in. If you read the US Financial Diaries, an incredible account of the daily financial lives of 250 families, you hear a chorus of stories that say, "We felt that." Together with the US Financial Diaries team, Aspen, Pew, the Federal Reserve banks, we feel like we've put income volatility on the map. We've created a newspaper term and started a new conversation about the importance of saving, not just for now, but soon, as the Financial Diaries team says. Many smart minds, including many of you in this room, are now working on that problem through employers, through policy, starting new companies, often with the support of the Financial Solutions Lab. That's impact. And to me, that impact is deeply important. The mission of the JPMorgan Chase Institute to produce data-rich analysis and expert insights for the public good is what it's all about. Now, over these last couple years, we've learned a lot. We've learned that privacy and re-identification risks are moving targets that require active management. We've realized that these data can't answer all questions, and sometimes the data surprise us. They defy our expectations and our theory. But when we stick to the data, that's when we make new discoveries. And that is my invitation to you in this room, to join us in making these new discoveries. So when you return to your desks on Monday, ask yourself, what data is my organization sitting on? And how could we use those data and put them to use for the greater good? Thank you.